What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. Super excited to have you guys back. I appreciate all you guys jumping on. It's been roughly about a week since I've been in front of the mic, and I am just coming back from getting my wisdom teeth removed. I had all four teeth removed, and my jaw has been super tight. I've been trying super hard to get back in front of the mic to put out some more content for you guys. So I appreciate everybody's patience. And it's been an interesting experience to say the least. This happened a couple weeks ago. I had some jaw pain and some mouth pain, and I went to the dentist, and they said that I had an infection, and unfortunately, it was a source of my wisdom teeth. And they said I had to get all four of my wisdom teeth removed. Now, I have been putting up with this pain for probably about 5 years, and it's been on and off, right? It hasn't been consistent, but for about 5 years, I remember the first time I felt the pain. I was at University of Delaware. And I'm just one of those people where every time it came up, I was like, yeah, I got too much going on. I can't take this right now. I'm just going to keep popping Tylenol and power through it. And that's exactly what I did for 5 years straight. And it came to a head this past week where there was absolutely no choice. I had to get them removed. And I went in on Monday of this past week, and they didn't put me under. They totally numbed me up. So for anybody that's gotten their wisdom teeth removed, I don't know if you've had that same experience. And it was quite interesting. They, got them out pretty quickly. They had to use the drill for one of them. It was very nice. I was able to pray the rosary, a few of the sorrowful mysteries as this was all going on. The procedure probably took about 30 minutes. And when I came out, I looked like a chipmunk, just totally swollen up. Had the gauze in my mouth. It was terrible. It was extremely at the time I kind of didn't really feel anything, but my mouth was just like so blown up. And I'm on my way back home, and of course I'm 40-minute drive from my dentist. And the reason that is because I had a new dentist down here. I haven't gone to the dentist since we moved down in South Jersey. It's probably been about a year and a half, which is on me. I need to be going to the dentist a little bit more. But I had this dentist that was 40 minutes away. They were the only one that could take me for an emergency appointment when I was having this pain. So I did the extraction with them. And as we're about 20 minutes out, 30 minutes out, we're on our way home. My mouth just starts bleeding aggressively. And we drive 40 minutes back over to the dentist. I thought a stitch popped. It didn't. I ended up putting gauze back in. It was just an out of control, nightmare going on. At this point, the numbness started wearing off. I was in a lot of pain. And it's been just pretty much a week of recovery. If you hear it in my voice a little bit, if you're watching on the video, I'm still just a little bit swollen. My jaw's just a little bit tight, but I'm powering through, trying to get some episodes out for you guys. And the biggest thing that I've been concerned about, and if you've gotten your wisdom teeth out, is this thing called dry socket. And it's kind of interesting, like looking in the back of my mouth, I'm kind of like, that kind of looks like it could be it, but I don't think that it is. I don't feel a ton of pain. So if you've had dry socket, and you could give me some insight on if it definitely is excruciating and I would be feeling it, I'd love to know that maybe I'm just not feeling it and I'm just a little paranoid. But all in all, it's been an interesting week. I'm on a full liquid diet, which has been awesome. That's sarcastic. It's absolutely not. It's been smoothies and yogurt and a little bit of ice cream. I'm just excited to get past this. I have a checkup on Monday, so hopefully all goes well there. And these stitches dissolve in the next couple of days, and I could kind of get back to normal. But I wanted to get on here. I wanted to, power through a little bit and start making some more episodes again, because it's definitely been a little bit of a hiccup. I was planning on dropping a few a week, so I appreciate everybody's patience. If you haven't, I've dropped 2 episodes so far. I've dropped Frat Star to Father, which is episode 1, which I highly recommend you listen to. It's kind of my, experience over the past few, years, and how it's kind of led up to this point of being a real estate investor, being a Catholic, going from, being a frat star to actual husband and father. And then I've also dropped another one, which is Leaving My W-2 Job, A Spiritual Journey, that talks all about leaving a corporate high-paying position to jump into the unknown, the abyss of real estate investing, and doing it full time now, and having a full blown company with, a course and, a kind of almost like a charitable foundation that I'm trying to put together as well in Rosary and real estate. So if you haven't listened to those 2 episodes, I definitely recommend going back and listening. But if not, I'm super excited to have you on here. We have some great stuff to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a real estate strategy called house hacking. And that was the first investment that I made. Was I bought a duplex, which we're going to talk all about, and how that investment has taught me so much, helped me become the real estate investor that I am, and has really catapulted my real estate investing journey. And this episode is probably going to be broken up into 2 episodes. There's a lot that kind of goes into it. So I'm very excited to get into that. But before we even get into that, I just want to talk about, again, the month of December for us Catholics. There's so much going on. We have Advent. Obviously, for everybody, there's Christmas, there's a bunch of different holidays that are going on. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in the busyness and everything that kind of goes on with the month of December. Kind of getting into the end of the year as well. There's a ton that goes on business wise. It's the last month of the year. There's a ton that goes on for tax purposes. And tax planning and tax strategizing, all of that stuff. But we have so many feast days as Catholics in December. And just to kind of go through a few, on December 6th, we had the feast day of St. Nicolaus, commonly known as St. Nick, St. Nicholas. On December 8th, we had the feast day of the Immaculate Conception. On December 9th, we had the feast day of St. Juan Diego. On December 12th was the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And on December 13th, we had the feast day of St. Lucy. So there's so much going on for us Catholics. And I want to just take a little bit of time to talk about a few of those feast days as I'm trying to feed in some Catholic tidbits to everybody as we progress through the episodes. But I want to talk about St. Nick a little bit. And everybody kind of thinks of, St. Nick, and they combine him with Santa, and they kind of mesh these two together. And for us Catholics, for parents, for any aspiring parents out there, I think it's really, really important to talk about St. Nick in your home and to make sure that your kids know who that saint is, because St. Nick is known for his compassion, his gentleness, his kindness, his caring for the poor. And in a time like this, in a time of December where there's so much hype around Christmas and Santa and, these gifts that we're getting and opening gifts, and it's very me type of mentality at times, St. Nick is the perfect example to be someone who cares and gives during this season rather than gets, right? Be a giver, not a getter. Is getter even a word? I'm not totally sure, but you get the point, right? And St. Nick is that perfect example. For parents, we really want to, promote that. We want to teach our children about that. And there's a very famous story about St. Nick where there was a father who had 3 daughters, and he couldn't pay for his daughter's dowry for them to get married. So they were potentially going to be going to extreme measures to make money for these daughters, where St. Nick, what he ended up doing is every night he dropped by that house and he was throwing gold coins through the window so that the father would have money to pay for the dowry for his daughter's weddings. And eventually St. Nick ends up getting caught. He swears that father into secrecy to not say anything until St. Nick, so long passes, and then the story ends up breaking out. But there's a tradition that kind of comes around this. And I personally didn't do this as a kid. Again, I don't come from a very strict Catholic, devout family. My parents were Catholic. Thankfully, they had me baptized. I have some memories of being in church around Easter and Christmas. My Catholic, kind of spirit came for me as time went on, as I got a little bit older, and as I married my wife. I married into a really devout Catholic family, which has been awesome. But something that my wife did that we are now doing for my daughter, and we plan on doing for all of our kids, is leading up to the feast day of St. Nick on December 6th, we take my daughter's shoes and we put little gold chocolate coins in there. Or, this is a show about financial freedom as well. If you want to put some actual gold coins in there, it's an investment. It's a safe haven for your money, right? It's an insurance policy. By all means, throw some real gold coins in there. And you put some oranges. And to be truthful, I meant to look this up before I started the episode. I don't know what the oranges are for. But again, the point being is it's a little symbol that St. Nick was there leading up to his feast day. And, you want to invite that into your home. Of course, I'm not saying take Santa out of the picture by all means. It's absolutely not the case. We still are going to say Santa's, coming, bringing you gifts and all of that stuff. But inviting St. Nick, that, Catholic touch into your family to show that there was a real person who was human just like you, who is known for his compassion, his kindness, his gentleness, his giving to the poor during this time of gift receiving. And it's a great way to kind of just continue to have that Catholic touch in your home. So I highly suggest doing that for all us parents out there and aspiring parents as well. And then the other one I want to talk about is the Immaculate Conception. And I love this one, because it relates to St. Bernadette. Mary revealed herself to St. Bernadette as the Immaculate Conception. And that's what led to this huge, basilica and Lourdes being built. But there's a really big misconception when it comes to the Immaculate Conception. A lot of people believe that the Immaculate Conception is actually when Jesus was conceived in Mary. But that's not the case. That's actually incorrect. The Immaculate Conception is when Mary was conceived in her mother, because Mary is made without sin, completely without sin. She is the perfect, pure vessel to carry the Son of God into the world, to carry Jesus into the world. Now, when all of us are born, we are born with what's called original sin. Now, original sin stems from our original parents, Adam and Eve, in the fall. When they fell out of, communion with God, they passed on sin to all of us. That's why us Catholics, we believe in getting our children baptized immediately, because when we're born, we're all born with original sin. And when we're baptized, the mark of Jesus is put on us, the Holy Spirit is breathed into us, and that original sin is washed, and we become people that have the key to get to heaven at that point, right? So when Mary was conceived, it was the Immaculate Conception of when she was conceived, because she was conceived without any sin, period. She is perfect. She is pure through and through. And that's why God had a plan from her from the moment that she was conceived, that she was to be the one to carry Jesus into the world. So that is a common misconception with the Immaculate Conception that we want to, obviously, as Catholics, make sure that we're aware of. And that's what we celebrate on December 8th. We celebrate the Immaculate Conception. So again, a lot of feast days in December. There's so much positivity to be a Catholic during this Advent season. There's so many great things to be doing. As I mentioned, read the Gospel of Luke. There's 24 chapters leading up to Christmas. It's a great thing to do during Advent. But aside from all of that stuff, there's obviously so much that goes on in December. But this episode today, I'm going to pivot into it, is about house hacking, right? And I'm just going to pull up my notes real quick, because I took a lot of stuff down that I want to make sure I cover. But really, there's a lot of different exit strategies when it comes to real estate, right? Real estate is not a one size fits all. There's so many different avenues that you could go down. Like a big one that I do is called BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I truly believe it's one of the fastest ways to scale a portfolio. There's flipping, which is a common one. There's wholesaling, which I talk about. You could be an apartment syndicator. You could be a limited partner where you simply are a passive investor. You could be a short-term rent, an investor where you do Airbnb. You buy properties in, the Poconos, the Smoky Mountains, whatever the case might be. There's a lot of different avenues to go about. In my opinion, the easiest barrier to entry into real estate is usually through a form of wholesaling, because you don't need, you don't need good credit. You don't need to have reserves. You don't really need anything, because you never take possession of property, which I'll talk about in a further episode. But another really good one is called house hacking. And house hacking is really when you buy a property and you live in a portion of that property and you rent out the other portions. Now, this could be done with a variety of different houses, right? You could do this with a straight single family house where it might have 3 or 4 bedrooms, or even 2 bedrooms, whatever the case might be. You live in one bedroom and then you rent out the other bedrooms, right? You might rent out another bedroom for $700. You might rent out another bedroom for $500, whatever the case might be. And you're cutting your living expenses while also controlling the asset. You own the asset. It's in your name, right? That's one way. Another common way to do it is to do it with a multifamily property. So that is a 2-unit, a 3-unit, a 4-unit, right? A duplex, a triplex, a quad, where you live in one unit and you rent out the other units, right? And that is, again, the same exact form. You own the property, you are living at a decreased expense, and you're at the same time building equity into the home. And that is what house hacking is, right? So the beauty of house hacking is the way that you could enter into the property, right? Because you are living in it, you get access to a handful of different things that you don't get access to if you're not occupying the property. And really what I'm getting to is with loans, right? So there's a common myth out there that you need 20% to put down on a property. And I'm just going to tell everybody right now, that is the most fugazi thing that's out there. You do not need 20% to put down to buy a home. Personally, I own 17 properties. I've never put down 20%, and I will never put down 20% for a property. Maybe in some crazy case I will, for whatever reason, if the bank's requiring me for whatever the case might be. But I've never put down 20%. I won't put down 20%, and you do not need to put down 20%. And that's what I hear a lot of people say. People say, yeah, we're going to rent for a couple years and we're going to save up. And again, I'm not saying that this is, totally wrong. If it's the right situation for you, everybody's different by all means. But in my opinion, if you rent and you're trying to save, you're pretty much robbing from Peter to pay Paul, right? You are paying, whether it's $2,000 a month in rent, and then you're saving, $3,000 a month, whatever it is, but you're paying out the 2,000. So you're really only saving like 1,000. In my opinion, it doesn't really make much sense. There's a better way to do it. There's a way to do it that will catapult your financial freedom path a lot faster. It'll help make you become wealthier, and it'll help you, get into a house faster for less money down. And that is the definition of house hacking. So you do not need 20% down in order to buy a house. And when I first heard about house hacking, I actually heard about it at a real estate investment group called South Jersey Real Estate Investment Group, right? It's a local group down in South Jersey. I'm actually now, after about 4 or 5 years of knowing that group, it's been about 5 years, I'm on the planning committee for South Jersey Real Estate Investment Group, which is a huge honor. I'm super excited to be on there. But the first event that I ever went to was at, I think it was Flying Fish Brewery in South Jersey. And I had, just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was still in medical device sales. I was listening to a few real estate podcasts, and I went to this meetup, and I actually met a couple there who was on one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts that I listened to. And I was like so starstruck. I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm meeting them. And I'm telling them about what I want to do. I'm telling them, I'm like, yeah, I make a lot of money. I'm in medical device sales. Like, I'm ready to deploy that money. I want to start investing. And they turn around and they're like, yeah, you should totally house hack. And I'm like, there is zero shot that I'm house hacking. I do not want to do that. I want to live in a luxurious property, and I want to own other properties and be a landlord and do all this stuff. And I was completely against it at first. But what they realized that I didn't really realize is, at this time I was still living at home, and house hacking was a way for me to become an investor and also change my living situation. And what I will say is, house hacking can be for anybody, right? But especially if you are kind of like that 20 to 25-year-old, maybe 26, 27, you're looking to get into your first property, you're also looking to buy and get into real estate investing, house hacking is super great because it really is investing on training wheels. And this is something that I've realized as time goes on. When you house hack a property and you become the owner of a property, you learn how to buy a property, how to acquire an asset. You also learn how to be a landlord, and you learn in some cases how to manage a renovation. And that is super, super important as you progress onto getting into, actual real estate investments. And being able to do it hands-on in your home is really, really critical. But there's also other benefits to it, even if you're not so much of a newbie, right? If you are an experienced investor, more of a seasoned investor, and this is a strategy that I would still use, being able to house hack allows you to acquire rare assets at a really low down payment. And I know I keep throwing a low down payment on you guys. I'm going to talk about that in a short second. But when you house hack a property, you're able to get in that property for a lot less out of pocket. And you can acquire some really awesome assets by doing that. If you go buy, let's just say, a quadplex in a really, really good area that's appreciating, that has a lot of people that are wanting to move in that area, and the rents are high also, you're able to acquire that with a lot less money out of pocket than some investors might have to pay. And because they have to pay so much out of pocket, the deal might not be as juicy for them as it is for you. And at the same time, now you have control of a great asset, and you live in a really nice area. And over the long term, you're going to hold that asset after you move out of the house hack. So now it's in your portfolio. So when I first heard about this, I was totally against it. And as I started reading more, as I started talking to more people, as I started listening to more podcasts, I started realizing that it was actually a really great strategy for me to get into, and that I was going to do it. So some time went on after that meetup, right? It wasn't an immediate thing. I read a really great book called The House Hacking Strategy by Craig Kurlope, I think his last name is. I'll put it in the show notes for everybody to take on if they want to take it. I read it. It was a really great book. It helps you, learn how to acquire a house hack, how to run a house hack, how to use it to accelerate your portfolio after the fact. So some really great stuff came from that. But after some time went on, as you guys have heard, if you listen to the past episodes, I left medical device sales. I jumped into a real estate investment company where I started to learn how to wholesale real estate. And then on September 2nd of 2022, we bought our first house hack, but it wasn't super like automatic, right? So I would say probably a couple months before then, my wife and I started looking for our first house hack. And we were doing this just off Zillow, right? My sister was a real estate agent. A good buddy of mine, Kevin, who's part of South Jersey Real Estate Investment Group, he's taught me a ton. He was an agent as well. We were all kind of looking. We were looking at on-market stuff mainly. At this point, I was wholesaling, but I didn't have super great expertise in like really getting off-market deals, especially in New Jersey. which is where I bought my first house hack. But we were looking at a few properties. We put some offers on some properties and we kept getting outbid, right? And at this point, this was 2022. This was like peak of the market, right? Which most people looking back on probably overpaid for properties at that point. When it comes to house hacking, there's so many benefits to it. One of them is if you make mistakes, it's actually a lot like it's not nearly as bad because of a lot of other factors, which I'll get into. But we put a few offers in on some properties and we got outbidded. And there was this one duplex that came up. It was in Runnymede, New Jersey, which is a town that I knew absolutely nothing about. But it was kind of in that South Jersey pocket, that Camden County pocket, and it was listed for 205,000. I went to go tour it with my buddy Kevin, and we placed a bid on it for 235,000. So $30,000 over asking price, which some people just will automatically be like, "Oh, I would never go over asking." Again, that stuff doesn't matter, right? It's all the way that you look at the deal and how you strategize to it. And I was comfortable going $30,000 over asking price on this property. So we end up placing this offer, and a couple of days go by, and I hear that we end up losing it, right? A conventional loan came in, and I was using what was called an FHA loan, which I'll talk about in a short second. But a conventional loan came in at 235,000, and the seller ended up going with that loan. This was also on my wife's birthday, so it was very depressing to be like, "Hey, honey, yeah, we lost another property." But so we end up not getting it. And then about a week later, I get a call from Kevin, and he's like, "Hey, the previous buyer is actually backing out now. Do you want to take it?" And I was like, "Absolutely! Like, let's go, let's ride." So we end up taking it, and it was really nice. I ended up being able to surprise Christina at her parents' house with a bottle of champagne. She was totally shocked. The waterworks and all of that stuff. It was really fun, but it was also a long journey ahead. We knew we had to close on this deal. So now that we ended up getting this property under contract, what loan we used for the house hack, and this is a loan that you could use. It's called an FHA 203K loan. Now, an FHA loan is a loan that is used for people that are going to be occupying the property, and it's a low down payment loan. Most of them are 3.5% down. So again, here bringing it back to that myth, right? You don't need 20% down in order to buy these properties. This loan is going to allow you to pay 3.5% down. Now, for everybody that's listening to this that knows a little bit about mortgages, you're probably responding, being like, "Oh, but you're gonna have to pay PMI, right?" Which is a little bit of a fee that you pay in the mortgage for not putting the full 20% down. It's usually, I believe, about 1 to 1.5% of the loan amount, right? So yes, I pay like an extra $100 to $200 a month for not putting the full down payment down. But in the reality of the situation is my money today is worth more than it is tomorrow, right? And this is, again, I don't mean to get like super deep on this stuff, but I personally will rather have an extra, $10,000 in my account than pay $100 a month in perpetuity for the next, 30 years until I refinance on the loan. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds on this stuff, but just for anybody that's probably saying that, your money is worth more now than it is later. If I'm paying $100 extra a month on my mortgage, I'm going to go find an investment that's going to make me $200 a month. So that way I could pay that $100 and still put another 100 in my pocket. That's just the way my mind thinks. Again, just my opinion. But this FHA loan allows you to put 3.5% down. Now the 203K loan allows you to wrap your renovation budget into the loan amount. So I want you to think about this again, right? We bought this house for $235,000, right? That was the purchase price of it. We put 3.5% down on that property. So 235,000 times 0.035 is $8,225. Let's just compare that for a second. That's $8,225 down that I had to put. Let's just say we bought it with 20% down. Times 0.2, that's $47,000. That's a $40,000 swing, guys. A $40,000 swing. If I had to save $3,000 every single month, it would take me 15 months to save that. If I had to save $3,000 every month for the 3.5% down, it would take me 2.5 months. So I just want you guys to put that in perspective. The FHA 203K loan is an absolute cheat code. It allows you to put 3.5% down, and it allows you to wrap your renovation budget on top of that. So this house, this duplex that we bought in Runnymede, we bought it for $235,000. It needed about $30,000 in repairs. I wanted to renovate the bottom unit. So the bottom unit was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, which Christina and I had plans on living in. And the top unit was a 1-bedroom, right? So I wanted to renovate that bottom unit along with doing some exterior work. And I knew that it was probably going to cost about $30,000. So here's the beauty of the 203K loan. If I didn't have the 203K loan, guess what? I would need to either go pull another loan to pay that $30,000 in renovation, or I would have to pull it from my pocket, which is something I absolutely don't want to do. I don't want to spend $30,000. I'd rather invest that $30,000 and make a return on it immediately, right? So the FHA 203K loan allows you to take the 30,000 and put it on top. So instead of having a loan amount of 235,000, I technically have a loan amount of 265,000, which realistically only increases my mortgage by about $150 a month, right? Which is awesome. It's wrapped in a loan. That's the beauty of the FHA 203K loan. So now that you understand that, you understand how you could get into a property that's a multifamily property that needs some work. You could get in with a low down payment and you don't need to pay for the work out of pocket. Again, it's a real estate cheat code. It is one of the best engines to use in order to break into real estate or to continue to grow your portfolio. So the beauty of this is with the FHA loan, there tend to be some intricacies, right? You need to pass an FHA inspection approval. If you're doing a bigger renovation, sometimes you need an FHA 203K loan consultant. I was doing a smaller renovation, just $30,000, so I didn't need one of those. But again, there's some intricacies that come with it. I would highly suggest talking with your lender and making sure you find a lender that's good with FHA loans. My lender, Nico, he's a good buddy of mine. He was a groomsman at my wedding, college roommate. We closed our FHA loan in less than 30 days. I think it was 29 days, which is like unheard of from someone who's in the wholesale space, from someone who's a real estate investor. That's faster than some people close like cash, loans. So again, it's all about knowing, making sure that you get a handle on that and getting in there. But again, the FHA 203K loan, the house hacking strategy, it's literally like a miracle when it comes to real estate investing. So again, now we got this property under contract. We have some of this stuff in there. One of the interesting things, like I mentioned, is when you house hack, you pretty much like become like a landlord on training wheels. And I was inheriting a tenant with this property, right? So we inherited this tenant. And she lived in the top floor. She was living in the one bedroom and she was really sweet. And again, one thing you want to keep in mind with house hacking, there's kind of like a trade-off, right? The trade-off is like, okay, I'm going to live in this house. I kind of am able to pull on the scale or pull on the lever a little bit of how much like comfort I want versus how much discomfort I want, right? So like keep in mind the house hack was a 2-bedroom unit on the bottom floor, a 1-bedroom unit on the top floor. Now my wife and I, we wanted to live in the 2-bedroom, right? We wanted a little bit more space. We're a little more open to like kind of having a nicer, spot where we could decorate it, do a bunch of things. We had plans to have kids. We knew that we were going to want that second bedroom. You might be, a single person going in there and being like, hey, I'll live in the top floor of the 1-bedroom and I'll rent out the bottom floor where I'm going to capitalize and make more money. And that's a great, strategy as well. So it's all about you and how you want to go about that. To some people, you might want to buy a single family house, live in just one of the bedrooms and rent out the others. To other people, you might be totally repulsed by that and be like, I don't want roommates. Like I need to make sure that it's as separate as it could possibly be. So again, it all depends on your comfort level. But as we went in this, we inherited a tenant on the top floor. We had plans to live on the bottom floor. Now in New Jersey, it's a very tenant favorable state. So I had to tread a little bit lightly here on how I did things, but she was paying way under market value. She was paying, I believe it was $600 a month for this unit where market rent was definitely at least $1,200, right? So she was basically paying half of what market rent was. Now, she was on a month-to-month lease, which means that her yearly lease had come to a close and now she was on a month-to-month basis, which means her or myself could give adequate notice that we were no longer going to be proceeding forward with the lease. Now, I didn't necessarily want to kick her out because she was, I could tell, I met her. She said she wanted to stay. She kept to herself up there. I have obviously a wife who's a stay-at-home, wife, especially when, she becomes a mom, like that's a big thing. I don't necessarily want someone that I definitely don't know upstairs, right? That I think I'm kind of getting some weird vibes from. So my intention was to try to keep her to stay, but I also knew that $600 a month just wasn't going to cut it, right? So my plan was pretty much this. I sent her an email and I just introduced herself as the new, landlord. We had closed on the property. And I pretty much just said, hey, look, I know you're paying $600 a month. It's not my intention to like come at you with like a gouge of an extra $600 a month right now to get you up to market rent. However, I do need to progressively move you up just because my expenses are a lot higher than the previous landlord was. So I'm not going to necessarily say your payment's $1,200 a month today, but in 30 days from now, it's going to be $800 a month. And then in 60 days from today, it's going to be $1,000 a month. And from 6 months from there, it's going to be $1,200 a month. So I mapped out a plan for her to gradually move up in rent. And her response was very simple. She was like, hey, I can't afford that. I'm going to look for a new place to go. Now, truthfully, guys, that was one of the best cases scenario for me. She easily probably could have been like, hey, that's not going to work for me. I want to stick with it is. And like I said, because Jersey is a very landlord, tenant friendly state, she might have had some sort of case there. But for her, she was totally fine with that. I said, hey, you have 60 days. That's totally fine. Take your time. No problem. And she ended up moving out within probably about 30 days. So at this point, we now are starting renovations on the property, right? So Christina and I haven't moved into that bottom unit yet. We are renovating on that unit, and we hired out a GC, a good buddy of mine, Marcus, will probably be on the show at some point. And I had a $30,000 renovation budget, right? So I've already gotten some experience as a landlord, right? Dealing with an inherited tenant. Now I'm getting experience as a landlord dealing with a renovation, right? So I had a $30,000 renovation budget, and I'll give you guys a breakdown of kind of what I spent that on. So we spent $10,000 on the siding, right? So when we bought the house, it was this kind of like green wood siding. It looked absolutely atrocious. We spent $10,000 on brand new white siding to really make the house pop. We spent $6,000 on electric. I had a knob and tube problem all throughout the house. I needed to get that remediated. So we got that remediated. We spent $6,000 on a new electrical rewire. $8,000 on the bathroom, which looking back on it was definitely more than I necessarily needed to spend on that bathroom. I probably could have cut that in half. But we spent $8,000 on the bathroom. We spent $2,000 refinishing the hardwood floors that came out really, really nice. And $4,000 on the kitchen. We did new backsplash. We did new countertops. And I think that's actually all we did in there. I think we did new countertops and new backsplash, spent about $4,000 on the kitchen there. So it was awesome. I really enjoyed the renovation process. I learned a ton. I learned a ton about what, things cost. How long some of these renovation projects take, certain things I probably would have done a few things a little bit differently. I probably would have took care of the inside of the house first and then did kind of like the siding and the exterior stuff secondly. I would have definitely did the electric immediately. So there were things that I kind of learned based off of that in regards to like order of operations, but all in all, it was really, really good. And I did a lot of the stuff with my dad too, which was a really great bonding experience. And my dad is a perfectionist. Like he likes to make things absolutely perfect. And me, I listen, I love good quality work. Like I'm not taking away from that, but I'm very much like, hey, it doesn't need to be that perfect. Like no one is noticing that. Like, let's please proceed forward. So him and I maybe butt heads a little bit on some stuff, but looking back on it, it was an awesome bonding experience. It's memories that I'll cherish that I'm really happy that I have with my pops. So it was really, really awesome. Just so much that I learned from it, so much that I took away from it, and so many memories that kind of came into it. All in all, as this was all going on, again, order of operations, I wasn't necessarily handling the renovation the best way possible. By the time Christina and I were married and we moved into the house, the second floor wasn't ready yet. So we did have the top floor that was vacant. So I did the, carry my wife up the stairs into the back door of the duplex into the top floor. And we lived in the top floor for about a week with no Wi-Fi and, no couches and all that stuff. So for the first week of marriage, it was a little interesting. But then we ended up going out on our honeymoon to Hawaii for 2 weeks, which was great. So my dad was doing some finishing touches on the bottom floor for us, which was awesome. And then once that was done, we ended up moving into that bottom floor when it was fully ready. And at this point now, we live in the bottom floor and we have a vacant top floor, right? So now we need to go out and find a tenant. Now, this is my first time finding a tenant. Now, what I do now, guys, just to give you guys some insight, is I have a property management software. It's called Doorloop. This is more so, Doorloop is a little bit more for people that do have kind of a portfolio of properties. Some good ones for some people that maybe have one or two or even just getting starting. Rent Ready, I hear is, really good and it's really good price. I think it's only like $14 a month. Avail is one that I tested out a little bit. I think when I had it, it was like $10 a month. So there's some good property management software. Apartments.com, I think, is totally free. So there's some good stuff that you could do there, but you could post your units a lot of times through those property management softwares, and they'll post to sites such as Zillow, Hotpads, Trulia, stuff like that. Because this was my first time doing it, and because I actually had somebody in the real estate space that I was working with that said he knew somebody that was looking for a one bedroom, I ended up just going through a real estate agent. And the process was really, really simple. I don't do that now. Moving forward, I just post everything through my property management software. But for the first time, I think it was really, really great. It was a good way to kind of get an idea of how things go when it comes to signing contracts, when it comes to just kind of, the ins and outs of onboarding a tenant. So I ended up putting this through a real estate agent. He ended up finding somebody for me that was looking for this one bedroom. And it was great. They did the screening process. They did all of that stuff. They organized the leases. All of that was great. And looking back on it now, I do not regret it at all because that tenant that was brought to me is still to this day my best tenant. She's awesome. I love having her up there. And when I brought her on, keep in mind, I did nothing to that unit besides changed out the stove, which costed me like $400. And I was able to take that rent that was $600. And when I brought this tenant on, I got her to in at 1075. So she was paying $1,075. And my mortgage payment on the entire property, guys, was $2,178. So I was living in this 2-bedroom unit with my wife for basically $1,100 a month. I had a tenant upstairs. I was paying $1,075. That basically cut my mortgage in half. So I was paying $1,100 for, in that area, a 2-bedroom unit's running around $2,000. So I'm getting a $900 discount on a 2-bedroom unit. On top of that, guys, I have a tenant that's helping me pay down my mortgage and build equity into my home, right? Equity is the difference between what the house is worth and what's owed on it, right? So this tenant's paying down my mortgage. As that's happening, I'm living for half of the price. And I now have a house that I have control of that I could utilize to end up pivoting into other things, right? So it really is a cheat code when we talk about house hacking. And one thing I want to make note of too is just like, on top of, all of that stuff is I was getting the experience of being a landlord, right? I was getting the experience of being a real estate investor, and I've added this awesome duplex into my portfolio as the first house that I have, right? And what we're going to talk about on the next episode is how that duplex really took my investing to the next level. Because of that house, because of that duplex that I had purchased, I then went off to buy my first actual BRRRR deal, my real estate investment deal, and I ended up buying the house that I fell in love with my wife in, which I'll talk about on this next episode that's coming up. But again, just to give you guys a little bit of a synopsis of everything that I would say here, whether you're a new real estate investor or you're experienced real estate investor, or you might kind of be sitting there in a position that I was, right? Where I was at that point 22, 23 years old. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go, rent a spot in Hoboken, New Jersey. And I'm going to pay, $2,000 a month for my bedroom or whatever the case might be. And I'll save some money, I'm making good money. I'll save some money. I'll eventually buy a house. Like, again, I'm not saying that's a negative strategy. I'm not saying don't do that. Hoboken's a great area. My boys live in Hoboken. They have a great life up there. It was just one of those situations where I was in that position. And you don't have to do that, right? If you want to get into real estate investing, if you want to start building wealth, house hacking is one of the best ways to do it. It's real estate investing on training wheels. It's a great way to add an asset into your portfolio. It's a great way to learn, and I couldn't suggest it more. So I'm going to drop in the show notes, guys, that book, The House Hacking Strategy. Definitely order it, give it a read. A good buddy of mine, someone that I'm mentoring right now, he just read it. He's actually in about an hour from today, he's going to go be looking at his first potential house hack. So I'm very excited for him. And again, it's a great way to kind of catapult your portfolio. So, and I'll be talking about that more on the next episode. But that's the story on house hacking. That's the story on my first real estate deal, which was an awesome, awesome experience. And I may even house hack again in the future. There's definitely a possibility of it. So as I always say, guys, pray the rosary, buy real estate. Make sure that you're praying the rosary every single day. I heard a really, really awesome quote the other day, and I'll share a quick story with you guys just to kind of wrap up. Anytime you pray a Hail Mary, it's like putting a rose in front of Jesus and Mary. I want you to think of that, right? When you pray a Hail Mary, act as if you're placing a rose at the feet of Jesus and Mary. And when you pray a rosary, because it's 50 Hail Marys plus the 3 that you pray before you go through the decades. So it's 53. It's almost like placing a crown of 53 roses on the heads of Jesus and Mary. And I want you to think of that. And that's such a beautiful thing to reflect on. And yesterday I had my nephew over. We bring my nephew to school every morning. And I have kind of like a little altar set up in my dining room area where I have a bunch of hooks where rosaries hang on. There's probably about a dozen rosaries hanging there, and I have some nice pictures. I have a picture of Jesus' Sacred Heart, some statues of Mary, some statues of Saint Joseph, some stuff from Saint Bernadette and Saint Anthony. And my nephew goes, "Oh, could we go by the rosaries?" He's 4 years old, right? And we're, by the rosaries, and he's looking at a few. We pulled this yellow one down, a purple one down, a blue one down, whatever. And I was like, Johnny, can we pray a Hail Mary? Do you know how to pray a Hail Mary? And he's like, no. But meanwhile, I know he kind of knows how to do it. And we start praying, and I'm like, all right, cool. Repeat after me. Hail Mary, full of grace, full of grace. He starts repeating it. And then he starts saying it on his own. And my 1-year-old daughter is there and she puts her hands together to pray. I kid you not, guys. And my Bernadette knows this. Like, we'll say to her, Bernadette, can you pray? And she'll put her hands together and she'll pray. But I didn't even ask her to pray. She heard the Hail Mary and she put her hands together and to pray with myself and my nephew. And it's just such a beautiful thing. And it makes you really reflect, guys. Like, we talk a lot about financial freedom. We strive for financial freedom, as I believe it's our duty to do so for our kids, to try to give them the best life. But strive to bring your kids closer to God, to bring them closer to Jesus, to bring them closer to Mary. Teach them the Hail Mary, teach them the Rosary, talk to them about St. Nicholas. All of these things, guys, it's our jobs as Catholics, as parents, as fathers, as husbands, in all these cases, to do these things. And it's a beautiful thing when it happens. So I encourage you guys to continue to bring faith into your family, bring financial freedom into your family, pray the Rosary, buy real estate. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys on the next one.